Welcome back. This is David again. Gonna walk through a couple of recent eBay pickups. I don't buy a ton off of eBay, and maybe I'll talk about that a little on this video, maybe not. But in the meantime, I'm gonna talk to you a lot of two things that I bought, or a pair of things I bought that fall in the same category. And then a pair of other things I bought in the same category that I would consider kind of an impulse buy. So this first one in this box here is what I would consider a great deal, or at least a very good deal. And that's one of the times that I buy stuff on eBay, is when I feel like something is, something I'm looking for. I certainly have saved searches and whatnot. And then I will, look for good deals on eBay. There's very few things that I want badly enough that I'm gonna buy them on eBay at sort of like high prices. There's a couple things that I'm looking for, but for the most part, I use eBay to search for stuff I'm interested in that I think I'm getting a good deal on. And one of the things that I have sort of on a back burner for me in my collection is the 7-Eleven Marvel cups from the 1970s, I think, maybe early 80s. I have a bunch, almost all of them. There's a few that I need upgraded and a few that I don't have. And one of the things I look for is, those cups when they pop up. And one of the challenges, of course, is that I got the cups that I have at a very good deal many years ago at, I think, a Black Friday sale at a comic book store. I believe Wade's comic book store, Wade's Comic Madness. And I think I got almost all of them. You can almost kind of see them. If you zoom in the video right around there, you can see in the background there's some stacks. Also an issue that I don't really display them very well right now, so I need to fix that at some point. But basically I got all of them for like $2 a cup, and while that was probably 15 years ago, in the back of my head I don't really want to be paying a whole lot more than $5 a cup for them. So that limits sort of how often I find them at a good price, or what I consider to be a good price. But there was a gentleman on eBay who had a whole host of them for sale, and he did it old-fashioned eBay style with a $1 opening bid. He combined shipping. So many of them that I need went for much more than I thought they would. Some sold for upwards of $30 a cup. But these two, which were on my list, I was able to pick up for the $1 opening bid. So it's Odin. And if you haven't seen these before, they're very cool. My eyesight might not be good enough to see what year this is. It looks like 1975, maybe. So this is Odin. So there's usually artwork of the character on the back and then a little quote. Artwork on the front, a little quote on the back. So Odin was one of the ones I needed. Got that one for $1. And then this one I was much more excited about because this character is actually one of my favorites, Valkyrie. So again, good, cool artwork on the front, little blurb on the back, also for $1. And then with shipping combined for the two, I think I ended up paying about $5 per cup. So, woohoo! If I don't drop it and break it, I'm very excited. These are both in great shape. And like I said, I'll be figuring out how to display these at some point. So this was a well thought out purchase. To be honest, I don't actually look for the cups very often, but in this case, I think I'm always looking for Marvel Slurpee posters or displays from back in the day. There are some out there. They don't pop up very often. They're very expensive. But every now and then I'll do a search for them because I don't have them in a saved search for some reason. And sometimes the cups pop up. And in this particular case, they were at a good deal. So bought those very intentionally and with some forethought. These next two things I bought, which you might be able to tell from this packaging, or posters, were 100% an impulse buy. Now, I say impulse, even though one of the things in here is something I've been looking at or looking for a while. But impulse in the sense that it's not something I very frequently look for. I don't have a saved search for it on my eBay searches. But I saw it I was looking at a video put out by Plaid Stallions, Brian Heiler, I think is how you pronounce his last name, where I watched a more recent video he had uploaded and then just kind of went down a little rabbit hole of some of his past videos. And he and I have very similar collecting, or I should say some serious overlap in collecting. There's a bunch of stuff I'm into that he's not, and vice versa, but in the Mego world, so again, up there, a lot of overlap. So 70s, superhero stuff. And in the background of an old toy room video that he did, I saw one of these posters and it reminded me that I had been sort of low-key looking for them. And so while I was literally on a Zoom meeting, I did an eBay search, and these posters come up fairly regularly, or they're not, it's not that you can't find them, but often they're listed at a much higher price than I'm willing to pay, often, a couple or few $100s per poster. And as I'm about to unveil it, I'll spoil, these are what are called appearance posters. So basically in the 70s and 80s, pre-cosplay being a real thing, pre-Marvel being on all of the major movies posters and whatnot, Marvel occasionally for things like mall openings would, offer up that their superheroes could make an appearance. And it would be somebody in what usually is a pretty terrible costume, if I'm being honest. The Spider-Man one, would be okay, but like there was the Thing and the Hulk, and they would just be in these like bulky sort of foam core costumes, very much what would be looked at now as like ultra amateur cosplay. But that was the official licensed, sort of Marvel appearance. And so when you did this, one of the things that would happen if you had a store opening or a mall opening or something and a Marvel superhero was going to be there, they would send you these posters that you could put up to sort of advertise and hype up the fact that the character is going to be there. So these are things I've been looking for a while. I actually missed out once. Some popped up on a Facebook marketplace for very cheap, and it was all of them, and I was really bummed to miss those. But I'll start with so again, these are things I'm looking for, but I didn't really have in mind what price I wanted to pay for them. I just knew that the price that I'd been seeing them at was a little bit high. So this guy had two. They were a little higher than I wanted to pay. I sent him an inquiry about whether or not he'd do a better deal. And he said yes, and I just sort of like, great, I'll do it. And next thing I knew, I was in a binding, agreement on eBay. So again, not really thought out. I think I'm comfortable with the price I paid. I think I paid a little bit over $100 for each of these posters, which is a lot, but reasonable in my mind. The one thing but again, I hadn't really thought it through. What is the price I want to pay, or like how long might I wait to find one of these? And I just pulled the trigger on it while I was in a meeting, barely thinking about it. One of the things that I messed up on a little bit as far as I'm concerned. So this is the Spider-Man appearance poster. So again, you can see decent, 1970s, 80s style artwork. And then at the bottom, it will say, Spider-Man will be here on, and then there's, the information. So where I biffed it a little bit on this is this Spider-Man poster, though it is exactly the same as the one from the 1970s, if you can see this here, is from, I believe, 1988. So much later than I usually collect and a little bit less valuable. I think I saw, because the next one I'm going to show you is from the 70s, I had assumed they were both from the 70s. And so I bought them both kind of on that premise and was willing to pay that amount. If I had known this was the 1988 version, I might have held off on that and just tried to make a deal for the one poster. And based on the response I got from the guy, I think if I'd offered, whatever, half of what I offered for the two for just the one, he probably would have accepted it. But that's fine. I'm still happy with the poster. I'm excited to have it. And, like I said, aside from that one little numbering in the bottom, which tells you the year, it is exactly the same poster as the one from, and I'm going to look at this now, 1979. So this is the 1979 one that I was much more excited to get, which is a Thing appearance poster. Thing is a sort of like sleeper favorite of mine. It wasn't necessarily a favorite character growing up, but has really grown on me a lot. And I have a bunch of Thing merchandise that I really love. And so again, same deal where it says, if the Thing will be here, and then it's got the information. And again, this one is from 1979. So these are all in both in very nice shape. Obviously, were never put up to actually advertise. Again, you can sort of see this one's the 1979. I believe they had a Hulk, a Spider-Man, obviously, Thing, and a Green Goblin. And that's the one that I almost got. That one's worth a little bit more. And that's the one, again, the whole set was on Facebook Marketplace probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I just responded a little bit too late to the guy. But these are the things I bought recently on eBay. Like I said, some are kind of impulse-ish buys. Others were a little bit more deliberate. One of the other things that I will just say, and this is totally, if you're not a collector, this will probably bore you to tears, but I had the chance to stop by for the first time ever a comic book store in Fredericksburg, Maryland, when I was at the Dominion toy show down there, and stopped at Gateway Comics. Ed Sanderson's the owner. We've known him for a long time from old, comic book shows. Great guy, and the store is fantastic. If you get a chance to go there, go. It is gigantic. There are a ton of comics and a ton of vintage toys. But one of the things that the only thing I bought there, and the thing I was most excited about, is these poster, basically poster bags and boards. I've been wanting to get some of these for a while, both for a couple of the things that I have in my collection that I don't have room to put up on the wall yet, but I'd like to have in a way where I can kind of like still flip through and look at them. But also for some things like this poster here, in case anybody's interested, that I'm probably planning on selling, and I have a couple others. This is another one that I'll probably plan on selling. One's more exciting. So this is a Fables poster that I don't think is all that desirable. This Wolverine old Marvel comics sold here from, toy stores, or sorry, comic stores from the 80s, much more desirable. But I picked up a few more of these, both to be able to transport posters to sell at shows, but also to store some of my own personal posters. And now I'm going to go ahead and see how I should do this with Spider-Man first, since they're still kind of rolled. I'm not sure how smoothly they're going to go down, but I'm going to give it a try, and we'll take a look. And like I said, this is beyond insider baseball in terms of interest level. But I was super excited because I could not figure out how or where to get these containers or display, whatever, bags and boards for posters. And so now I've got the ones I need and know where to go get more if I need them. And yeah, works out pretty well. So again, you can still, if you see it by the side, you can maybe see that there's still a little bit of, nope, my ceiling's not gonna let me show you, but there's still a little bit of like a bend to the poster. But I think if I lay it flat, it'll flatten out over time. And again, that just looks, even though it's not on the wall, it looks pretty cool. So that's my story of my recent eBay purchases. I realized I picked up a few other things in my collection recently and rearranged a couple things, so maybe I'll do something with that at some point in the future. But for now, you got a little insight into my eBay buying habits and saw hopefully a couple cool collectible items.